Hey everyone, Ryan Luke here from Luke Holmes Academy. How can a novice property investor get started in property in 2020? For me, there's a few factors, but first and foremost, it is education. I think you've just got to soak up as much knowledge as you possibly can, whether it's Facebook groups, books, podcasts, audiobooks, whatever it might be. You've just got to get as much information as possible soaked up. And instead of listening to the radio in the car, listen to a good property podcast. When you're out on walks, maybe with the dog, or you're doing your running or some fitness, listen to audiobooks and just really soak up as much knowledge as you can around all the strategies. For me, it's sort of buy, refurbish, refinance is a net wealth building strategy that you kind of can really get some good momentum with over time. And then on top of that, we look at creative strategies such as rent to rent, rent to SA, and lease options to add cash flow into business, and then obviously use that cash flow to build the net wealth through the buy, refurbish, refinance. Obviously, you kind of got a few strategies with actual renting. So you've either got your single lets, which is single family homes, or just single professionals renting one house as a whole. You've got your room by room, which is very popular and is a good way to maximize the revenue from each property. And then obviously you've got service accommodation, which I love, and it's one of my, I'm really passionate about service accommodation. I think it's a great industry. There's a lot of money to be made from it, and if it's done right, you can really become a good host. You can give people a great traveling experience, and you can do some real creative things with the properties, try and make them different and stand out. So basically you need to focus on acquiring property to start off with, and you do that by getting educated, making sure that you know everything, and then once you're at that point where you feel you're comfortable, you've analysed your deals, you've done your due diligence, then you make that step in terms of the investment. But be warned, your first investment, it could be your last one if it's not done properly. I have stopped many potential investors from making bad investments. They've done some due diligence, it doesn't work. They thought it worked because they kind of looked at the wrong numbers, but it would have actually been a very costly investment. We're probably talking more about sort of rent-to-rent type strategies here, where maybe they're going to pay too much for the rent. They thought the nightly rate was going to be a lot higher than it would be for serviced accommodation. Easy mistakes to make. There's a lot of data out there and it's quite confusing, so they are easy mistakes to make. But it's with just a bit of education and using someone else's experience who knows the market. I'll give you a good example. I got pitched a rent to SA deal not so long ago in my hometown of Newcastle. It was a 2-bed flat, and this particular deal sourcer was saying that it was going to generate £4,000 revenue a month. Now, I've got plenty of 2-bed, 3-bed, 4-beds and 5-bed properties in Newcastle on serviced accommodation, and I'm telling you now, there's no 2 or 3-bedder that will do £4,000 gross revenue a month. I asked the sourcer if he'd been to Newcastle before. He hadn't, so I politely asked the sourcer that he does not sell this deal because he'd be putting someone in financial suicide. That is what you've got to be careful of, and it would have been quite easy for a novice property investor to buy that deal. The numbers look great. The annual profit looked amazing. The 3-year contract that it was going to be run over. The numbers were out there, but they weren't true. But me, having the experience and being able to do my own due diligence, knowing the market and knowing how things work, I was able to quickly see that was not a good deal, and obviously warned them off others. So that's where you can really rely on sort of, I always say, and it's not just because I am a mentor, but get yourself around people that have done it before, whether you're paying for it or it's free. Just get yourself around that people that have got the experience, they know what they've done, they've been there, they've done it, and they've made the mistakes. Working with a mentor is definitely the quickest way to accelerate your journey. As I say all the time on my breakthrough calls, everything we teach you can find for free online. It's just we kind of keep you focused in the right direction all the time, and we make sure that you're not going to make the £4,000 mistakes, where guys are pitching these deals and they look great, or you might put some deals into a spreadsheet and the numbers look like a worthwhile investment, but the reality of it's different. And mentors and being around good, experienced property investors who've done it for years can steer you away from those type of mistakes and steer you into the right deals. send you down the right channels. I know a lot of people kind of say master one strategy first and then go on to something else. I'm probably a bit against that. I think you should just learn every strategy, and then whatever lead is presented to you, then you take the lead how you see fit. So you might get you could get a below market value lead come in, and it could actually turn into a lease option. But then it could then be a good service accommodation as a rental, or it could, so there's various different avenues you can take things. Whereas if you just fully focused on below market value, buy, refurbish, refinance, single let, and that deal wasn't going to be a BMV, then you'd end up wasting that lead. You'd move on and try and find another lead. Whereas, you could have solved that problem maybe by offering a lease option, or even a straightforward rent, So by knowing and having all the tools in your inbox, I do think that that you can really push your journey a lot quicker. And that's kind of how I teach all my students. And, and we are, getting great success from it. And they're building portfolios with a mixed bag of HMOs, single lets, lease options, rent to rents, so there's plenty on offer. And, at the end of the day, all we're looking for is cash flow each month right now, especially at the beginning of your property journey. You're more than likely in a job, or you may be unemployed and you want to go, or you're a tradesman and you just you're going in and out of properties all day, and you figure it's now time to start your property journey. So at first, goal number one is normally always replace an income. So most people seem to have sort of either a £2,500 or a £5,000 target net cash flow. Done properly, you're looking at sort of 10 to 12 properties to acquire that. But you don't necessarily have to own those 10 to 12 properties, I'm a big believer in just controlling property. Yes, I like to build my asset base, and, I think that's the long-term plan. So you've always got that to rely on. As I said, you can't really build a proper company on someone else's foundations, but you can definitely use someone's foundations in the short term to get to your ultimate goal, which is obviously a full portfolio, totally owned, worth tens of millions, with a recurring cash flow every month. So, but you've got to start somewhere. And for me, it's all about controlling properties. So, control the properties, create the cash flow, and then go on to obviously net assets thereafter. If you have a bit of money to start off with, I would, really advise using it wisely, making sure that you're educated before you spend it. If you're going to put 20, 30, 40 grand into a house, you need to make sure it's right. Spoke to a gentleman yesterday who has bought, done it the hard way, saved up 2 deposits for houses over a number of years, put them in, bought them at market value. He's got 40 grand tied up in those houses now, and he's just sitting there getting £400 a month net profit from them both. And he's stuck, because he didn't get the right education. He could have turned that 40 grand into a portfolio of houses quite easily, doing buy, refurbish, refinance, using a bit of it for creative strategies, and but he didn't have the education, so he didn't know how to do it. And knowledge is power. You hear this saying all the time. When you know how to do something, you are so much more powerful, and you will get much faster results. Working with other experienced investors will also get you much faster results. So for me, getting started, whether it's 2020, 2021, everyone always tells you when you invest in property, they wish they'd done it sooner. I'm the same. I wish I'd done it straight out of school. I wish I'd got the knowledge that I know now, and I wish I'd just done it and gone for it. But I didn't. But, I did start, and I encourage you, if you haven't started already, the worst mistake you can make right now is not getting started. Because in 5 years' time, property is going to be worth more than that's what it's worth now. In 10 years' time, it's going to be worth even more. Yes, you're going to have the dips up and down, but right now there's also, there's no restrictions on, lease options. There's no restrictions on rent to rents, and I'm not saying that that's ever going to happen, but we just don't know. But whilst it's okay, and we can, rent room by room sort of HMO start, we might as well profit from it. And now's a good time to get that experience controlling property and just get kick-started, really. So my number one tip is just get started. And my number two tip is get educated before you actually invest any money. And that should lead to a very, very, very profitable property career for you. And it moves very quickly. In as little as sort of 6 to 8 weeks, some of my mentees are controlling 5, 6 properties. One of my mentees who's been on board since probably October, November last year, you know, he's on the verge of signing 11 deals last week, you know, and they're dripping over this week. So he's you know, been at it, and, you know, his portfolio has gone from nothing, you know, to potentially over 20 units in probably 6 months. So, you know, that's the kind of thing that can happen when you get the right education, and you're working with the right people, and you've also got the work ethic. You know, I think you can read as many books as you want, you can listen to as many podcasts as you want, but if you don't apply the knowledge, it's all absolutely pointless. You know, you can go to as many free seminars and courses, webinars, whatever it might be. If you don't actually then do the work, the whole thing is totally pointless. You know, you've got to take the action. You've got to build the relationships. You've got to make the phone calls. You've got to negotiate the deals. But you can't have the support with that. But ultimately, you've got to do it, because everybody's out there doing it. It's a competitive market, and everyone's after the same sort of properties, especially when you go into sort of the buy refurbish sector. You know, there's a lot of people going after those below market value properties that need done up. They've been lived in for 30 years, nothing's been touched, you know. So you've got to be quick, you've got to be competitive, you've got to know how to spot the deals, you've got to get out there and view them, and you've got to take some serious action if you want to change your results in the next sort of 6 to 12 months. But if you do that with the right education, with the right people around you, you'll absolutely smash it. And you do not need degrees, you do not need to be good at numbers, you don't need to be good at technology. You just need to be able to build relationships and have a good work ethic and have the foundations of the knowledge, and then you kind of learn as you grow, and as you go on through your journey, you learn from your mistakes. You know, but by being educated, you reduce your mistakes, and therefore they're not as costly, and it allows you to keep moving forward. So yeah, so that's kind of my top tips of how kind of novice property investors can get started in 2020. But as I say, top tip is just get started, and you should be doing that today.